What is up, guys? What is up? What's up? Just gonna wait for people to tune in before we get started. Good evening, everybody. Sorry if you can hear a low hum in the background. That is literally the air conditioning unit. Because if that wasn't on, I'll be frying like a chicken nugget in an oven. I'm not gonna lie. Guys, if you're on the chat as well, say hi. Yo, Harry, how's it going, brother? How's it going, man? I'm gonna pop the chat up here as well, so we've got it on the side so I can see it. What's going on, bro? Hope you're doing good, man. Guys, Jake is not here this evening. He is with Shah for her birthday. Cannot pull him away from that. It is very important for him to be there. I don't think it would be frowned upon. It's a little bit frowned upon if he chose to be on this podcast, you know, as opposed to him being at a meal with his missus on a birthday. Believe it or not, that wouldn't slide. And I can understand it. Tried that once with Maddie, didn't go down very well. Hey, Simon, how you doing, man? How you doing, bro? Okay, all right, then, guys. So what we're going to do, we're going to get stuck into the podcast. Yeah, we're going to get stuck going through these questions. If you guys have any more questions throughout this podcast, then go ahead and just ask them. I'm happy to throw some in off the cuff. So the first one we're going to be going through is, I'm following the plan to the letter, but progress feels slower than it did at the start. Is that normal, or should I be changing something? So naturally, progress is always quick at the start, right? It's this law of adaptation, where when your body gets a new stimulus for anything, progress is always going to be a little bit faster for the first 1 to 2 weeks. Tends to be for a lot of people as well. As soon as you start, you will start regulating your nutrition. You start giving your body what it actually needs. You start getting rid of all the processed foods. You start training regularly, and you start doing a bit of cardio. Inflammation comes off the body as well. And when inflammation comes off the body, that's not necessarily fat loss. That's just inflammation coming down off the back of you actually giving the body what it actually needs. So in that first couple of weeks, when you lose like, I don't know, 4 to 5 pounds in some cases, that a lot of that is not body fat, that is water retention as well, which inherently people are like, oh, that sucks. So I really hoped it was body fat. Look, listen, it's inflammation. So having that not there is going to make you look better anyway, right? So it's going to look like you've lost more body fat, which is great, but you shouldn't be consistently looking for that each week. 4 to 5 pounds a week is too excessive. And if that was the case, if you're in a fat loss phase, you're probably more eating into muscle tissue than you are anything else, which means your performance is going to go down. And for an athlete, and you all are athletes in my book, because you want to treat you exactly the same. You know, the only difference between the lifestyle client and an athlete is people use that whole lifestyle client thing as like a sort of a crux to say, oh, we can have a looser approach to it. So some coaches use that because it's kind of like a card to be a little bit lazy. I want to be on you guys like a coach for an athlete, which means that I've got every metric tracked. And for me, my job is to allow you guys to be able to progress in terms of strength and performance. Pardon me, choking on my own spit. Progress in terms of strength and performance in no matter what phase you're in, whether that be fat loss, whether that be in the gaining phase, especially in the gaining phase. But we want to look for that progressive curve over a long period of time. And that comes from, again, careful planning. And if you're in a fat loss phase, we shouldn't be looking for more than 2 pounds of weight loss per week. And that's more than just 2 pounds of body fat coming off, because you're going to be gaining muscle too. Okay, so you might lose 1.5 kilos of body fat and gain 0.5 kilo back of muscle tissue. You've lost 2 pounds. There's still a lot of body fat being reduced, but actually it's being replaced with active tissue, which is going to make you look better. Number 2, how to recover from a back injury. Now, this one's hard. Generally, after a back injury, you do want to go for more stable movements. Now, for me personally, I've dealt with back injuries before, not to an extreme. I know people have like slip discs, and they have further back injuries where, you know, there are spinal issues. That's a lot more extreme than what I've experienced. So I can't speak from that regards. I can speak from working with guys with those issues. And the biggest thing really is to choose stable movements. Don't use it as a reason not to exercise unless it's severe. If it's severe, then definitely rest. Let it back off a little bit. But when you get back in the gym, it's just stable movements. You know, machine-based movements. A lot of people shit on machine-based movements because they think it's easy. Oh, yes, easy option. You get more out of compound lifting. No, you don't. It's all about how you apply that energy. And the only thing that's good about compound movements is you can work more muscles at the same time, but sometimes that's a negative. If you're trying to specifically target your lats with a barbell row, for example, unless you're choosing a barbell row for the power output for your deadlift, where you want those muscles to be able to, the additional muscles like the obliques to stabilize a little bit better, then if you're directly looking to do or grow the lats, realistically, like a lateral pull down would be great. Yeah, so allows you to isolate the movement. You're very supported, and you can focus on just growing the lats that way. Hey, Liam, hope you're good, bro. Okay, so next one. Why do we eat the same meals on repeat? So the reason why we eat the same meals on repeat, there's this thing called the elimination diet. And the elimination diet is one where we eliminate all processed foods, and we stick to a specific diet that covers all of our micronutrients and is good for digestion, right? So the idea being there is that if we have a baseline level of food that we know we can consume that regulates digestion well, if we then start to add variety in, we can then pinpoint what is causing digestive issues, whether that be gluten, whether that be fiber, high fiber content. There are lots of different things that can be effectively affecting your digestion. And if we start with too much variety in the diet, how do we know? It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, right? And it's like, cool, our digestion isn't great. We've got so much food variety here. Well, I don't fucking know what's caused it, nor would you know. And I know a lot of people do food intolerance tests, but unless you're willing to pay $3,000 for a proper food intolerance test, most of those are bullshit. You know, if I was to have digestive issues from, let's say I ate like 2 large kebabs on a night, which means my fat intake's very high, and fat's processed inside the body to slow digestion down. And then I was to do a food intolerance test, and that would be when I'm bloated. Then naturally that food intolerance test, if I was to do like a blood test, would come back as me being food intolerant to probably some form of saturated fat. I'm not intolerant to it. I've excessively ate it, which is not correct. So it's not right. Yeah. So the reason why we stick with the same meal plan is so we can get control over digestion and then monitor it from that. Always start from a foundation of digestion, a foundation diet plan, and move to add variety as we go. So then ultimately we can then figure out what your body can and can't consume and utilize. That is the idea. And it's called the elimination diet. It's been around since the 1950s, 1960s. And it's what most old school bodybuilders used to go by, which is like start with a baseline of food. And there's a guy called Frank Zane back in the day, one of the guys that beat Arnie, and he was only 170 pounds. If you ever get the chance to go on YouTube, one of the best physiques ever. There's normally for most supplement brands, there's this like guy that stood like this. That's Frank Zane from back in the golden era. And that guy was an artist at what he did. But he had a thing called the Frank Zane diary, and you can buy it online. And it's his diary leading up to the prep where he beat Arnie, and leading up to the Olympia where he beat Arnie. And you can literally see him doing this in real time. And there was one week where I've got the book at home and I've read it. And it's so fascinating because obviously they didn't have YouTube, they didn't have Google, they didn't have the internet. So they had to figure stuff out through word of mouth and trial and error. And there was a whole week where he was like, this week, I'm going to just try eating lettuce. And he was like, I'm going to eat 6 lettuce florets a day for the next 7 days. And he gets to like day 4 and he's like, easily the worst gym session I've ever had. You're like, well, obviously, dude, you were having like, I don't know, 100 calories a day. So you know, he had to figure out what worked for him. It was a style of elimination diet, which is what we do, and it just builds a really, really strong foundation to build from. So hopefully that makes sense. How do we know when it's time to push more weight on the bar versus nailing the reps I've got? Oof. Okay, so this is a good one. So when it comes to increasing weight, the foundation, if you imagine that, like, you've got a pyramid, and right at the bottom of the pyramid, there's a guy holding the pyramid, right? It's holding the pyramid like this. That guy holding the pyramid wouldn't be there. It would be on the floor and smashed up and broken if that guy wasn't there. And that guy is exercise execution. So the foundation, below the foundation, is exercise execution, right? So if exercise execution isn't perfect, then we don't have any merit to move up the pyramid. Now, the pyramid, at the base of that pyramid, is progressive overload in terms of, it starts off with tempo. So again, if our main reason for lifting more weight and gaining more muscle is time and tension on the muscle, then can we slow that set down a little bit, right? We don't want to go to excess. We don't want it to be like slow motion, but have we got good control over that weight, right? The next one is reps. Okay, going up that pyramid. Are we at the top of our rep range? If I've given you 6 to 8, are we, now the tempo's sorted and the tempo's controlled, right? So execution is nailed, tempo's controlled. Reps, are we at 8 reps of a 6 to 8 rep range? Yes. Then the top of that pyramid is weight, right? So at that pyramid, at the top, that's when we improve weight. Okay. But if the bottom parts of those pyramids, that pyramid is not hit, then we don't have any merit to increase weight yet. And it's very hard to check your ego sometimes. I had a PT with Tam this evening. We were talking about it, you know, when we were all younger and when we were pushing heavy weights, it's an ego-driven thing. And it's nice to get stronger in the gym, but ultimately, sometimes the most progression you'll see is by just improving on what you're currently doing. Yeah, and it depends on why you're doing this. Again, if you're a power lifter, your goal is to find, and I said this to Sam this evening, the difference between powerlifting and bodybuilding is, or powerlifting and building muscle for aesthetics as well, is with powerlifting, you're trying to find the path of least resistance. You're trying to get the weight from A to B to just get more points on the board, to get more weight lifted. So you can sacrifice range of motion. That's why a lot of guys do that arch on a bench press, because they're making it easier. They're taking away this amount of bench, which then makes it so much easier. So they're reducing the movement pathway. When you're trying to build muscle, we're actually looking for the path of most resistance, right? Which is actually like, we're looking to make the exercise as hard as possible and get strong in the hardest possible way so we can challenge the muscle in more than any other movement that we do on a day-to-day. So sometimes you have to think about like why you're doing it. And if our goal is aesthetics, it's not about how much weight we can move with the path of least resistance. It's how much weight we can move with the path of most resistance. And if we can do a moderate weight with the path of most resistance, most of the time people look fantastic and you'll look like you can bench 150 kilos way before you can actually bench 150 kilos. But again, we are looking to eventually progress weight, but it is probably the last lever that we pull. Okay. So hopefully that answers your questions. I know I ramble a little bit, so I do apologize. Number 5, I don't take pre-workout or caffeine anymore since I'm not great at moderation, but end up having too much throughout the day. But what would roughly be a good amount of food and types of food to have before a gym session for lifting, as I'm never quite sure on how to time my last food before the gym for best energy release? So this is a good one. This is a really good one. So generally you want something that's not going to cause too much digestive burden. So I would always say some form of simple carbohydrate, something that's going to be fast release. A great one is a banana. Generally, bananas are quite dense in terms of calories, in terms of energy. About 120 calories for a large banana, I believe. And very quick to absorb within like half an hour to 45 minutes. Okay. And I know having more calories sounds negative, but it's how you absorb those calories. And that's ultimately going to give you way more energy for your weightlifting session. as opposed to having like, 200 calories of oats. 200 calories of oats, there's fiber in there, which is going to slow down the digestion of oats. And if your body's trying to focus on digestion and weightlifting at the same time, not ideal. Not ideal, because your body's trying to do two processes when it needs to focus on the one main process, which is weightlifting. So simple carbs is good. Having some form of protein can also be a positive, with some form of leucine in. So again, having like a banana and half a scoop of a protein shake, or a protein shake in some cases, can be fine. That's the best way you can do it, and having that about half an hour before you train is the best way to approach it. Caffeine is also not that bad as well. Like, I think obviously, as long as you understand why you would be utilizing caffeine, and caffeine's not that bad. I used to, before I was with Maddie, I was with a lady called Rachel, and her family were all in the NHS, high up in the NHS, and they were talking about the benefits of caffeine and how it elevates the heart rate up slightly and actually improves heart health. It used to be the direct opposite, but now it's actually for caffeine at a moderate level. So like 3 to 4 coffees a day isn't actually that bad for most people. And as long as you use caffeine, it's a performance enhancer, right? Caffeine is a performance enhancer. So it's a vasodilator, improves blood flow, and it will enhance your performance. So I would always say a little bit of caffeine pre-workout, as if you're using it for a pre-workout, it's got efficacy. So just grab it, take it in a pre-workout form, use it to train, and that's the only time you use it. It's absolutely fine. And as long as you keep it linked with your training, there's no negatives with it. As long as you start adding pre-workouts in to get through your work, he says while drinking a white Monster Energy, then you can start to build an unhealthy relationship with it, I suppose, at that point. Okay, so the next one is, what supplements do the heavy lifting, so to speak, and what's just a more nice to have supplement? Just thinking budget wise. Okay, well, all supplements that are in, if you've got a coaching plan, all the supplements are there for a purpose. They all do heavy lifting in different degrees. If you had a budget, then the main ones would be whey protein, glutamine, a multivitamin, and magnesium. Those 4. Whey protein, because people generally struggle to hit their protein requirements without it. People struggle to get, it's way more expensive to get food in through, protein sources like chicken and things like that. So protein shakes are more cost effective and also very easy to fit in with your lifestyle. Glutamine for digestion. Most people, when you have like a higher protein diet off the back of, now weightlifting, you do need some kind of digestive aid. So we do need glutamine in there as well. It lowers inflammation in the stomach. Magnesium, because sleep quality is fucking important, so important. Like, I cannot emphasize how important sleep quality is for progress in the gym. And a multivitamin, just because generally most people don't get enough of the micronutrients they should be having on a day-to-day basis. So definitely important there. Okay. For overall health. Number 7, what to do if I miss a meal or a session and the right way to handle it. So if you miss a meal, or you miss a session, best thing to do is not to worry about it and just figure out why it happens. Is it something that's going to frequently happen each week? And how are you going to work around it? If it's a one-off, and like, let's say you've got like a birthday celebration for your parents or your kids or your partner or something like that, or a close friend, and there's no way you can go to the gym, okay? There's absolutely no way. Okay, you can't fit it in around your work, because as soon as you finish work at, 5 p.m., you've got to be like home, get changed, get back out. And in the morning, you have to like walk the dog, get your kids ready, all that sort of stuff. Don't worry about it. Okay, that's a one-off. It won't happen again. Don't panic. There are plenty of other gym sessions in the future. You will make it up over time. Equally, being well planned out and well scheduled is really, really good. Very important. Okay, so scheduling your workout time. If you know you got a busy day, next time, if it's going to be a frequent thing, week in, week out, maybe you have to wake up that little bit earlier on that day. So maybe you go to bed a little bit earlier the night before. Maybe you get to the gym early and you just do it. Yeah, sometimes it's a case of just doing it. And I know some people, when I tell them like, oh, you might have to work out at like 5 a.m. They're like, oh, no, man, that's early. Maybe on that day, that is all you can do. And maybe, yeah, it won't be the most quality gym session, but at least it's something. And it will get easier the more you do it. Yeah. So that's kind of the way you want to work around it. But equally, if you miss a session, don't panic. Okay, don't worry about it. I've missed plenty of sessions in my time due to work being super busy. Again, family birthdays, events turning up. Like if someone in my family is in hospital or something like that, I have to go over there. Don't worry about it. Move on from the next day. Don't dwell on the past. Only take control of what you can control, which is the future. Yeah. So just let it go. The next question, is pros and cons of like 10 to 12 reps per exercise versus 4 to 6, and when you would do which, like cut or bulk. Okay. So in terms of rep ranges, you can go as low as 4. Yeah. And it doesn't matter really what phase of training you're in. You're always looking for progressive overload. I think if we were being specific, you're probably looking to do more in the lower rep range when you're right at the end of like a cut, for example, where you probably can't allocate that level of volume because your recovery is compromised. So your calories are pretty low, right? So 10 to 12 reps is going to have some kind of endurance burden as well. So you are going to struggle to recover from that as opposed to doing 4 heavier reps. That being said, as long as you're approaching failure in whatever rep range you're in, and as long as there's enough time under tension, you're going to stimulate muscle growth off the back of that. So part of it is finding a rep range that works for you and a rep range that would allow you to be able to get great exercise execution and push to 1 to 2 reps in reserve on a set. So for me, like, if the guys that train with me and do legs, I do 4 reps in my squats. But those 4 reps are hard. But again, I'm advanced with my weightlifting because I've been doing it for like, 15 years now. So I know how to execute well. And I also know where my point of failure is because I've done it enough. So I can do 4 and I know when I'm like hitting my max. Whereas if you're new, you might want to stick with 10 to 12 because maybe you are building that movement pattern in. More frequency is better at a lower weight because you get more control over the weight. So to answer your question, it doesn't really matter what phase of training that you're in. You want to choose a rep range that allows you to keep good exercise execution and allows you to ultimately progress over time. And again, if you're doing a coaching plan, we'll monitor that for you. Again, I have guys like Paul, for example. Paul started at 10 to 12, then we moved him to 8 reps, then we moved him down to 6, and he'll progressively probably pull back to like 4 at some point because he's been doing it for like a year and a bit now, right? So he's got a lot of training knowledge. He's been doing the same exercises over and over and over again so he can execute well at a heavier weight. Next one, how to deal with people you consider closest to you not supporting your bodybuilding journey. Thinking you have an eating disorder just because you want to eat your meal prep instead of going out for dinner and drinks. Oof. This is something that I've always battled with. For those that don't know, I come from a family of people that are not gym bunnies. My mum is very, very fit. If you ever see my mum, she is very strong, very fit. But their diet is very different to mine, right? And at some point, you have to just bring it back to like a foundational science perspective, right? The diets that we give you guys are very healthy. And I spoke to someone about this in their check-in this week just gone. At the end of the day, right, the diet is there to facilitate your overall health. Back in the day, this wouldn't be called a diet, it'd just be called healthy eating, right? But nowadays, because the social norm is to have all these processed foods and you're marketed to so heavily and people are marketed to so heavily, people that aren't you, that going to Mackey's should be like just a nice chill weekend thing. And that's fine. It's all in moderation and balance. Now, at the end of the day, your body wasn't meant to process food like that. Yeah, your body wasn't meant to deal with all the additives, the preservatives. Your body was not built off that foundation. We did not have Kit Kats available 100 years ago. So your body is not meant to process that, right? So ultimately, you're sticking to a healthy diet. You're not doing anything wrong, right? If you, from time to time, when you go out, you maybe have like a cheat meal and you don't dwell over it and you don't like, again, an eating disorder would be having a cheat meal. If I gave you like a cheat meal, an off-plan meal, on Saturday, go and eat whatever you want. And you're like, oh, no, I can't possibly have that. That'll throw me off my diet. At that point, you've got an unhealthy relationship with your diet. You should just be able to enjoy a meal if it's prescribed, and if you're allowed it, then just go and have a bit of fulfillment, a bit of joy with that meal, and be able to then just switch back onto a healthy diet the following week. You're following a healthy diet. That is a ground basis and the foundation of all of it. It's a healthy diet that covers all your micronutrients. If anybody says otherwise, well, okay, cool. It's probably them trying to kind of pass over their feelings about their own diet. They're trying to make they feel bad about their choices, and they're trying to make you feel bad about yours, because ultimately you're not doing what they're doing, right? So I would always say just kind of stay very linear with the science. Look, the foods you're eating are very healthy. It is what it is, right? And if they're not supporting you, the best thing you could possibly do is call them out on it. Yeah, like just call them out on it. There's nothing wrong with a bit of a debate from here and there, right? Me and Maddie do that sometimes. I'll be there like, look, I don't necessarily agree. let's talk about it, right? And then you can share your opinion. And if you don't feel supported, and if you feel like, you know, you don't have an eating disorder, and they're saying that you do, and you're like, look, I don't have an eating disorder. I can have, I don't know, a McDonald's if I wanted to. I'm choosing not to because I want to take care of my health. Is that okay? Like, why is that a big deal, right? Why does it impact you? Why is what I'm eating impacting you, right? Because technically it shouldn't. If I'm sitting down and having my meal and you're having your meal and we're both eating at the same time, even if my meal choices are a little bit different, my food choices are a little bit different, how does that affect you, what's going in my mouth, right? So at the end of the day, you just have to have that conversation with them and just tell them how you feel and relay your emotions with it, and just get them to understand that maybe actually it's not an eating disorder and it's just making the right choices. Hopefully that helps. It's a really tricky one because I've always just stayed linear with it. In my brain have just switched off to what other people say, and I just don't give a fuck about it, to be honest. Because most of those people back then that were saying that it's an eating disorder and stuff now will ask me for advice on their diets, and I'm like, well, okay, there you go then. You know, so yeah, it's one of those things, man. It's tricky. Everybody's got a different situation they deal with, but trying to stay linear with the science behind it. Okay, so the next one. So how to navigate PMDD. So PMDD is a tough one. I know it really triggers for women in the luteal phase of their time of the month. So with PMDD, if it's been diagnosed generally, you've got like two ways you can address it. So number one, you got two pathways you can address it with. So the first pathway is medicinal. That's not something that I could give advice on. That's something you need to talk to the GP about, nor do I know a lot about the medication that goes alongside PMDD. I know there are things that can be prescribed that can help with PMDD in like luteal phases. But the training and nutrition side, I can definitely give some advice on. With PMDD, you need to basically train depending on the period of your menstrual cycle that you're in, right? If you know that emotions are going to be higher inside of that luteal phase, if you know that cravings are going to be higher, if you know those things are going to impact your training, then that's a solid week to back off on training volume and back off training intensity, and probably switch to a maintenance style diet approach to alleviate stress and just to allow you to be able to follow something in that week that allows you to maintain your level of progress, right? What you don't want to do is push through that week, which then will carry over to you being like fucking angry and then falling off your diet. So the way you would do it is like in your ovulation phase and so on and so forth, you push for a deficit, because if you're in a fat loss phase, or a surplus, depending on if you're in a gaining phase as well, you push in those weeks. So 3 of the weeks you're good. And then in that luteal phase, we just hold fire. Then progress, and hold fire. So your graph of progression will go up, steady, up, steady, up, steady. And that means it's just a hell of a lot more maintainable long term. And you're going to see better overall progress that way. Yeah, especially if you're in a dieting phase. If you're in a dieting phase, deficits tend to be harder than surpluses, especially when you've got PMDD and you're in that luteal phase, because you're a lot more negative about your own progress, and cravings are higher, and you might slip up, and then you just let that momentum carry you, and then you fall off in the upcoming weeks, or upcoming days. So you let that one fuck up spiral into 3 days. Whereas in a surplus phase, it's a lot easier because you're eating a lot of food anyway, so cravings generally aren't as much there. but you might not like the way that you look. So at that point, you want to lower off inflammation so you can look in the mirror and be like, okay, cool, I look pretty good. And then obviously continue to push from there. All right. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of guidance with that. But the medicine side, that's a GP. That's a GP's area and remit. Number 11, if you have prepubescent children who are interested in bodybuilding, what sort of exercise would be good as a starting point? We can encourage from home to build a healthy relationship with gym and nutrition. Okay, so literally, I would say like the foundational movements are good. Like all exercises are good, right? There was that science study a while ago that said that like exercise can stunt a child's growth. It can't. That's a load of rubbish. It was disproved years and years, a decade ago now. As long as kids are doing exercises correctly, you're absolutely fine taking them through exercises. It's great for them. It's great for bone density. It's great for confidence at school, all of that. And it will help improve their performance with sports. It will give them discipline. It gives them so many positives. But as long as they're taught the right way, and what I would avoid doing, unless they specifically want to go into like Olympic lifting or something, avoid the complex movements like power cleans and snatches and stuff. I see kids doing that sort of stuff, and I'm like, yeah, look, the kid just wants to get jacked like one of his favorite superheroes. He doesn't need to be doing power cleans. And equally, the risk versus reward value is high on the risk side versus the reward. There are much better movements that they could be doing that are way safer for the kids. So it's just a foundation of, again, I know I keep talking about a foundation of just teaching them the right way to do these exercises. They can do everything as long as they do it right. And again, that will carry over to them having more confidence and carrying that into school. And I think confidence nowadays is so important for kids. Me and Maddie were talking about it. There are so many kids now that are very much anxious, more so than in previous generations. And I think weightlifting brought me a lot of confidence, brings so many other people a lot of confidence. Is something that I would instill in my kids from a very early age to allow them to go to school and feel pretty good. As long as they get taught right. Yeah. And nutrition wise, it's just the foundations of high protein diet. Yeah, give them a high protein diet. Okay. Make sure they don't make it too complex. Don't get them to carb count or calorie count. Just if you're making their meals, just give them high protein so they can recover from the work that they're doing, and make sure they've got adequate fats and good carbohydrates. And generally that'll be covered anyway through making the right food choices, and you'll be absolutely fine. And you can start there with 3 meals a day. And if they consistently moan about like being achy, or they don't have enough energy, or they don't feel like they can perform very well in sports, or they're not recovering from the exercise they're doing, then increase their protein, maybe give them another meal, another snack, like a protein bar or something they can take to school, and then you can increase their protein that way. Kids are just animals, though, aren't they? They recover so quick, so you should be fine off 3 meals. And I've got one more here, which is how to know how to push when it's so hot without going too far, without burning out. Oof. Okay, right. This one's hard because I live in England, bro. So we're all not prepared for it, right? So when it comes to training, realistically, you just got to stick to whatever plan that you're doing, right? So at the end of the day, look, if you've got 8 reps to do at 60 kilograms, just hit that. Don't go above and beyond. Hit your primary objective and your primary targets for the gym. Get it done and get out. Simple as that. Yeah, like you don't have to go to excess. Again, when the weather's a little bit cooler, we can start adding like if you feel like you got an extra rep in there, get an extra rep. Or if you feel like you can go a bit heavier, go a bit heavier. But realistically, just try and hit your targets. Try and get a bit of progressive overload, get a little bit stronger, dip in, dip out, you're good. When the weather cools down a little bit, you can start to add that little bit more of intensity in there. All right, but for right now, if you have 6 exercises and you burn out on exercise 1, and that means that you're like lightheaded and you're dehydrated and you're over fatigued for like the remainder of the 5, then yeah, it's not going to be ideal. So just try and hit those minimum effective targets and you're good. Okay, guys, so those are all the questions I've got. If you got any more, you can fire them through the chat and I will answer them as best I can. God, I feel like I was just talking for like half an hour. Music is vibing. Five more minutes, team, and then I've got to go do some posing with Christopher. Might pull up Frank Zane so you guys can see him as well, because I know I mentioned him earlier. What pre-workout would you recommend? I used to use EHB Labs. Still recommended? I've never used that one, man. Being honest, if it gives you that buzz before a gym, then yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I can have a further look into it. I'll tell you what, I'll Google it now. EHB Labs. Are you on about EHP? Yeah, it must be EHP Labs, right? And are you on about OxyShred? More sold as like more so a fat burner than anything else. Yeah, so if it's OxyShred, OxyShred is so expensive for what it really is. I wouldn't recommend that because you're gonna be spending like, I mean, it's come down a lot now. It's come down to like 20 quid, but as for a small one, yeah, I probably wouldn't do that. No, I wouldn't go with EHP Labs. I would go with like Abe. Abe is pretty good. Like Abe pre-workouts, they're pretty decent. Yeah, it was marketed as a fat burn, Nath. So it was marketed as like a fat burn and a pre-workout. And to be honest, they just put L-carnitine in it, bro. It's a pre-workout formula with L-carnitine, and then they just literally sell you like 37s for like 30 quid. So you're better off going with like Abe, because Abe is specifically a pre-workout, and that will give you a buzz, and it's good. It's very cost effective, and that always makes me like train hard. That will like sell your core C4. C4 is my most favorite pre-workout. It gives me a huge buzz, but I don't get any dip at the end where I feel like I want to just go to sleep for 4 hours. You get like a really, really good pump in the gym, and I train really hard, and it just sort of slowly levers you back down to normal. So sell your core C4 is always good as well. Liam, would you invest in whey isolate protein instead of normal whey protein, or is there much difference? So whey isolate has just got no lactose in it, or it's got minimal lactose. So if you are lactose intolerant, then you would go for like a whey isolate, which just isolates the whey. But other than that, it's not really any difference. If you're fine with lactose, then yeah, you can just go for the standard whey, like whey concentrate, and that's still fine. Yeah, that's the only difference between the two. Whey isolate is good for people that are lactose intolerant. So generally speaking, if you have like a whey protein shake and you feel bloated, or you feel like you're going to the toilet a lot, switching to a whey isolate is always good. I was getting that Frank Zane video up, wasn't I? Hang on. This is actually the routine that Jake's going to be doing for his bodybuilding show. We're actually learning it at the moment. I'm mega excited about that, dude. I'm so fucking pumped because all the bodybuilders in the crowd are gonna be like, "Oh, I know who this is," and then everybody's gonna freak out a little bit, which will be really cool. Right, so if I share this screen with you, hang on 2 secs. So this guy is the guy that ran like a 7-day lettuce diet. Hang on. Wild shit, dude. Right. I'll turn the music on. I'll turn the music off. Hang on. So bear in mind, he was like 40 here as well, yeah? So he was 45 years old, I think. Bear in mind, 45, okay? It's 1983.
Die Startnummer 7 für die USA startet Frank Zane.
Imagine being like 45 and looking like this, dude. Mad. Bit of Pink Floyd in there as well. Crazy shit, dude. Lettuce diet, 7 days. Let's go. Ah. Right? That's what I mean. This is why, like, dude, sometimes don't fix what's not broken, right? Like, 110%. We've got so weird and wonderful with variety diets nowadays. Sometimes the good old basic elimination diet's been working for years. Is the best way to do it. So, there you go. Obviously, now knowledge has increased massively as well in terms of like what foods actually do in the body. So, there's actually a lot of scientific backing for this style of dieting, which is great. Right, guys, I'm going to love you and leave you on this one now because I've got to shoot off and do some posing with Chris because he is a week out from his show. So I've got to go do that with him. But I hopefully have helped some of you guys with the questions. Hopefully you can take a lot of information from that. If you need any more help with anything, I'm always at the end of WhatsApp. You know that. You can always drop me a message and I'll get back to you ASAP. But other than that, guys, have a lovely, lovely evening. And I will talk to you guys later.